I was putting my car keys in my purse when the phone rang. Mitchell. Mom, did you remember dinner? His voice sounded kind of strained. Of course not, son. What time do you have to be here? 7 o'clock, like we said. Jessica's cooking something special. I chuckled to myself. Jessica and cooking are not compatible. In 6 months of marriage, I'd never seen her do anything more complicated than microwave a ready meal. Apparently, her husband still doesn't get it. Okay, I'll be on time. Can I get you anything? No need, Mom. Just come over. He hung up faster than usual. I put the phone away and thought. Something about Mitchell's voice was unsettling. In 45 years of motherhood, I'd learned to recognize every nuance of his tone. He was clearly nervous now. The house in Youngstown, where I'd lived for the past 30 years, seemed too quiet after Robert's death 2 years ago. My husband had left me enough to not worry about money. Plus, there was my pension and a little savings. I'd never complained about financial difficulties, and Mitchell was well aware of that. That's why I was surprised by his recent request for help. First, he asked me to borrow $3,000 for car repairs, then another $5,000 for some urgent expenses. I didn't ask. A grown man has a right to a private life. But when the requests became regular, I started asking questions. Mitchell had been a middle manager at an insurance company for 10 years. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to live on. At least it used to be. Before he married Jessica, he'd lived modestly, renting a small apartment and driving an old car. Now they had a house in a nice neighborhood, a new SUV, and Jessica wore designer dresses. I got up from the old chair Robert liked to read the paper in. It was the chair he'd bought before we were married, 48 years ago. The upholstery was worn and the springs were sagging, but I couldn't get rid of it. Too many memories. Robert had never particularly liked Mitchell. Not that he didn't, just that he was dry with him. My husband preferred clarity and order, and my son grew up a soft, dreamy boy. Robert didn't think he'd be any good. He was wrong. Mitchell became a responsible, reliable man until he met Jessica. In the kitchen, I checked the stove was off, locked the back door. The habits of an old woman living alone. Robert had always laughed at my checks, but now they saved me a lot of worry. The house is big, old, anything can happen. Grabbing my purse, I headed for the front door. It was a warm September evening outside, and the leaves were just beginning to turn yellow. Mrs. Palmer, my neighbor, was watering the flowers on the porch. She waved and I nodded back. We weren't intimately acquainted, but had maintained a buddy relationship for years. My old but reliable sedan started the first time. Robert had taught me how to handle machinery. He said a woman should be able to fend for herself in everything, including automobiles. I've always prided myself on driving carefully and taking care of my car. On the way to my son's house, I thought about Jessica. They had met only a year ago at some corporate event. She was a receptionist at a beauty salon, and I still didn't understand what had brought them together. Mitchell is a serious, thorough person, reads books, knows about art, can hold a conversation on any subject. And Jessica? Jessica loved fun and didn't think much about tomorrow. She was beautiful, that was undeniable. Long brown hair, a chiseled figure, and the ability to present herself. 29 was the age when a woman was in her prime, but there was an emptiness behind her appearance that I'd sensed from the first time I'd met her. Jessica could only talk about fashion, celebrities, and shopping. Attempts to have a serious conversation with her ended in awkward pauses. When Mitchell first brought her in to meet me, I tried to get along with her. I asked about work and got one-word answers. I asked about future plans. I heard dreams of a beautiful life and a rich husband. Jessica did not hide her intentions, and there was a certain honesty in it. Mitchell fell madly in love. He literally glowed beside her, made grandiose plans, talked about children. Jessica smiled sweetly and agreed to everything. But I could see her appraising our house. estimating the cost of furniture and paintings. The wedding was modest. I insisted on paying for the banquet. The groom looked happy, the bride satisfied. Her parents came from a small town in Pennsylvania. Simple people. Her father worked in a factory. Her mother worked as a clerk in a local store. They were clearly proud of their daughter, who was marrying well. After the wedding, something changed. Mitchell began to call less often. Our meetings dwindled. When we did see each other, he looked tired and preoccupied. He answered my questions evasively, saying that everything was fine, just a lot of work. Jessica, on the other hand, was in full bloom. She had new outfits every week: jewelry, expensive handbags, professional manicure and pedicure. She showed it all with the pride of a girl who received a long-awaited toy. She answered my cautious questions about her spending with the easy answer that Mitchell liked to spoil her. I turned onto the street where the newlyweds lived and slowed down. The two-story structure with a neat lawn cost far more than my son could afford. The house was in a prestigious neighborhood where doctors, lawyers, and successful businessmen lived. Jessica's brand new SUV was in the driveway, a gift from her husband for their 6-month wedding anniversary, she told me. I parked and lingered in the car for a moment. Something was bothering me. Too much spending for a family with a modest income. Too many changes in a short time. Mitchell had never been wasteful, and now he was spending money like he was printing it at home. As I walked up to the porch, I noticed the expensive flowers in tubs on the sides of the door. Orchids require special care and don't come cheap. Jessica clearly hadn't skimped on anything. I pressed the bell. Mitchell opened the door, and I shuddered. He had lost weight, shadows under his eyes, and his smile seemed strained. His shirt hung baggy, as if he'd bought it at a better time. "Hey, Mom, come on in." "Hi, son." I kissed him on the cheek and noticed he flinched at the touch. "You look good." It was a lie, but I didn't want to start with the questioning right away. "Jesse's still getting ready," he said, walking me into the living room. "Do you want something to drink?" "Water, please." I looked around. The living room was furnished with expensive, modern furniture: a leather sofa, a glass coffee table, a plasma TV on the wall. There were designer figurines on the shelves, paintings in gilded frames on the walls. It all looked beautiful, but somehow impersonal. It was as if someone had bought things not for love, but to impress. "It's beautiful," I said, taking a glass of water. "Any recent renovations?" Jessie did her best. She has good taste in beautiful things. There was pride in his voice, but I sensed something else. Tension? Anxiety? It was hard to tell. "How's work going?" He hadn't told me in a while. "It's good," he answered quickly. "They're planning a promotion probably next year. Additional responsibilities, new projects." I nodded, though something in his tone made me wary. Mitchell had never been good at lying. As a boy, he'd blushed when he tried to lie about uncompleted homework or a broken glass. Heels clicked on the stairs, and Jessica appeared. She wore a beige dress that cost more than my monthly pension, and a pearl necklace around her neck that I'd never seen before. Her hair was professionally styled, and her makeup was flawless. "Deborah!" she exclaimed, coming toward me with open arms. "How are you? You look great." Her enthusiasm seemed genuine, but I noticed how quickly she glanced at my clothes. Apparently she was pleased. Nothing expensive or fancy, an old woman in her repertoire. "Thank you, darling. You look wonderful, too. New dress?" "Oh, yes." Jessica glowed and twirled around, showing off the outfit. "Mitty gave it to me last week. Said I deserved it." I shifted my gaze to my son. He was examining his shoes, as if it was the first time he'd ever seen them. "What did you deserve a gift for?" I asked. "No reason." Jessica shrugged. "There's tea. Mitty likes to spoil me. He says a beautiful wife is the best advertisement for a successful man. Isn't that right, darling?" Mitchell lifted his head and smiled at his wife. It was a smile that broke my heart, so tired and doomed. Of course, he said quietly. Shall we go to dinner? Jesse's been cooking all day. We went into the dining room, where the table was set with expensive china. I recognized the set. I'd seen it in the window of a china store on Main Street. It cost over $1,000. Another mystery on my son's growing spending list. The dinner turned out to be a made-to-order dinner. I recognized the signature containers of the haute cuisine restaurant. Jessica served the food as if she had prepared it herself, talking about the complexity of the preparation and the secret ingredients. Mitchell made no attempt to expose her. Strange game for a married couple. How are your neighbors doing? Jessica asked, putting my salad on. Does that old lady who complains about the noise still live there? She was talking about Mrs. Palmer, who really was sometimes overly vigilant about neighborhood order. She does. We get along well. I couldn't stand it. Jessica grimaced, constantly watching myself, wondering what the neighbors would say. It's good that everyone here is cultured and understands that a young family has a right to a private life. I saw Mitchell tense up. Apparently, there was some kind of problem with the neighbors. No wonder. Jessica liked loud parties and loud music. Conversation over dinner was languid. Jessica talked about her friends, their husbands, their shopping. Mitchell ate in silence and nodded occasionally. I tried to ask about plans but got evasive answers. You know, Deborah, Jessica said, putting a piece of salmon in her mouth, we're thinking of buying a country house. Mitty says a country house is a good investment. Mitchell choked on his wine. It's just an idea for now, he said quickly. Nothing concrete. A country house is good, I agreed, but expensive, especially now that real estate prices are going up. Yeah, but Mitty says we have to think about the future. We'll have kids and they'll need a place to relax. Jessica smiled dreamily, and I had a strange feeling. Something about her words didn't sound right, too confident for someone who couldn't afford to spend that kind of money. Jessica brought the main course, duck and orange sauce, which had definitely been ordered from the same restaurant. She put the dish on the table with the look of a real hostess who had spent half a day at the stove. I hope it didn't turn out too dry, she said as she sliced the meat. It's a complicated recipe, but I wanted to try something new for a special occasion. Special occasion? I questioned. Well, it's not every day your favorite mother-in-law comes to visit. Jessica smiled and winked at me. Mitchell ate in silence, and I noticed his hands shaking as he raised his glass. Nervous, but why? A normal family dinner shouldn't cause such tension. Mitchell, you're eating so little, I remarked. You don't like the duck? It's fine, Mom. Just not very hungry. Jessica put her hand on her husband's shoulder. My poor Mitty's been working so hard lately. Projects, reports, meetings. Sometimes he comes home late at night, exhausted. New responsibilities? I asked my son. Not really new, just more responsibility. I studied his face. Mitchell had always been an open child and then an adult. If something was bothering him, it was immediately reflected in his expression. Now he looked like he was carrying a heavy burden. Did they give you a raise? I asked innocently. Mitchell froze with his fork in his hand. Not yet. They said I had to show results first. But they gave me a company car, Jessica added quickly. For business trips, isn't it expensive? She was talking about the SUV in the driveway. A company car? That's odd. As far as I knew, the insurance company where the son worked didn't provide employees with company vehicles. Yeah, Mitchell confirmed, not looking up from his plate. Temporarily. What a good company, I said. They take care of their employees. Do they pay for fuel too? Of course, Jessica answered for her husband. All expenses are covered. Mitty can even use the car for personal use on the weekends. I nodded, mentally noting another oddity. Companies rarely allowed personal use of company vehicles, especially such expensive ones. What about your job, Jessica? I asked, deciding to change the subject. Oh, I don't work at the salon anymore, she said with a wave of her hand. Mitty said a married woman didn't have to work, especially when the husband can provide for the family. I see. So what do you do now? Home, mostly. Furnishings. Design. Jessica passed her hand around the dining room. See what it was like when we moved in? It was horrible. The previous owners had no appreciation for beauty. When did you move in? 3 months ago. Mitty said renting was a waste of money. Better to pay the mortgage and gradually become owners. I looked at my son. 3 months ago, he asked me to lend him 5 grand for emergencies. Now it turns out they bought the house. It's a good decision, I said cautiously. But the mortgage on a house like that would have to be decent. We're lucky, Jessica glowed. The bank approved very favorable terms. The down payment was less than we expected. How much is this house worth? Mitchell looked up sharply. Mom, let's not talk about money at dinner. Why not? Jessica wondered. Deborah's family, we can talk about it. 375,000. Isn't it beautiful? I almost choked on my wine. $375,000. At Mitchell's salary, no bank would approve a mortgage for that amount without a sizable down payment. It's really beautiful, I agreed. Where did you get the money for the down payment? Mitty had savings. Jessica answered quickly. He's a very frugal man, and he's been saving for years for his dream. I looked at my son. He was studying the contents of his plate again, as if there was something exceptionally interesting written there. Savings? Mitchell had never been good at saving money. As a teenager, he spent his allowance the same day he got it. Well done, son, I said. So you've learned to budget. Yes, he mumbled. Yes, he mumbled. Jessica got up to clear the plates. And for dessert, we have cheesecake from that pastry shop on Market Street. Deborah, have you tasted their cheesecake? They're divine. No, I haven't. Oh, you're gonna love it. Mitty Special ordered some when he heard you were coming. She took the plates into the kitchen so I could have a moment alone with my son. Mitchell, is everything okay? Of course, Mom. Why? You look tired and nervous. Just a lot of work, like Jessie said. Son, I leaned across the table to him. If something's wrong, you can tell me. He looked up, and for a second I saw something like despair in his eyes. It's okay, Mom. It really is. But his voice shook on the last word. Jessica came back with cheesecake and coffee. The dessert really did look amazing. Layers of creamy filling garnished with fresh berries. I hope it's not too sweet, she said as she cut the pie. I ordered a reduced sugar pie. At our age, you have to watch your health. At our age, Jessica was 29. I was 73. What's our age? It's delicious, I complimented as I tasted the dessert. How much does a cheesecake like this cost? I don't remember exactly, Jessica shrugged. Mitty ordered it, but it wasn't very expensive, only about $40. $40 for a pie isn't very expensive. Robert and I had a daily food budget of $40 for the whole family. Do you order these desserts often? Special occasions, for birthdays, anniversaries, when guests come over. Jessica smiled. Life is short. You have to enjoy it. I agreed, although my definition of enjoying life was radically different from hers. After dessert, we moved to the living room. Jessica put on some music, something modern and quite loud. Mitchell cringed. Would you keep it down? He asked. Oh, sorry, darling. She turned the sound down. I forgot you had a headache. Does it hurt a lot? I asked worriedly. Sometimes, when I'm tired. Maybe you should see a doctor. No need, Mom. It'll go away on its own. Jessica sat down next to her husband on the couch and rested her head on his shoulder. My poor Mitty is so worried about work. He's afraid he'll let his coworkers down, won't be able to handle his new responsibilities. What are these new responsibilities? I asked. Mitchell opened his mouth to answer, but Jessica beat him to it. He'd been put in charge of a large project. He's now in charge of a team of 10 people. Can you imagine the responsibility? When did this happen? About 2 months ago, Mitchell answered. And the pay raise? It's still under consideration. Jessica intervened again. But management had promised a substantial raise when the project was completed. I nodded, though something didn't add up. If Mitchell had been appointed project manager 2 months ago, why did he keep asking me to borrow money? What was the project? Developing new insurance products, my son answered quickly. It's pretty complicated, a lot of analysis and calculations. Sounds interesting. And when do you plan to finish it? In about 6 months. Will your salary be reviewed then? Yeah, they promised. Jessica got up and went to the window. We have such nice neighbors, she said. Dr. Henderson on the right and Mr. Blake, the lawyer, on the left. Very nice people, educated. And you're friends with them? We haven't talked much yet, but we're planning a get-together. Right, Mitty? Mitchell nodded without enthusiasm. A party's a good idea, I said. What will you be serving? Oh, we'll have catering. Jessica waved her hand. Professionals can handle a lot of guests better. How many guests are you planning? 30 people, neighbors, Mitty's co-workers, my friends. 30 people, catering, that's another few $1,000s. And with no pay raise and the project still unfinished. It's expensive. It's no big deal, Jessica said. We'll make it about 5,000. Maybe a little more if we order live music. $5,000 for the party. It was the same amount Mitchell had asked me to borrow a month ago for emergencies. I looked at my watch. It was 10:30. It's time for me to go home, I said, getting up. Thank you for a lovely dinner. But it's still early, Jessica objected. We can watch a movie, talk. Some other time, dear. I'm not used to staying up late. Mitchell walked me to the door. On the porch, I turned to him. Son, if you need any help at all, you're welcome. Thanks, Mom, but it's really okay. He hugged me, and I felt his muscles tense. Take care of yourself. You too. I got in the car and waved them off. Jessica stood in the doorway, smiling and waving back. Mitchell had already disappeared into the house. On the way home, I thought about what I had seen and heard. Too many inconsistencies. Too expensive a life for someone with a modest salary. Too many lies in the explanations. At home, I made tea and sat in Robert's chair. I needed to think things over calmly. Something was definitely going on with my son, and that something had to do with money. The next day, I couldn't get last night out of my head. All day long, I was haunted by bits of conversation, by Mitchell's glances, by Jessica's too casual answers to uncomfortable questions. I tried to do the usual things reading, cleaning the house, watering the flowers, but my thoughts kept returning to my son. Around 3 in the afternoon, the phone rang. Mitchell. Mom, how are you doing? Did you have a good trip yesterday? Sure did, son. Thanks for dinner. It was a pleasure. Jessie worked hard. She wanted to impress you. You could hear the tiredness in his voice, just like yesterday. She did it. It's a beautiful house. You can tell she put a lot of thought into it. Yes, she likes beautiful things. The pause was long. I waited for him to say something else, but the silence continued. Mitchell, are you really feeling okay? Yeah, Mom. Just calling to see how you're doing. Why don't you come and see me this weekend? It's been a long time since we've seen each other alone. We'll see. We have plans on Saturday. What kind of plans? Jessie wants to go shopping. She says she needs a new closet this fall, a closet makeover, more spending. I had dresses from 10 years ago hanging in my closet, and I didn't think they were outdated. What about Sunday? Sunday, I don't know. Maybe. Okay. Call me if you decide to come. I sat on the phone for a long time after the conversation. Something in my son's voice was unsettling. He sounded like a man under constant pressure. I decided to go for a walk. The fresh air helped me think. I put on a light coat and went outside. It was a cool September day, and the leaves on the trees were turning yellow. On the way out, she met her neighbor, Mr. Cole, who worked for the same insurance company as Mitchell, only in a different department. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Crawford," he said, walking his Labrador. "Good afternoon, Mr. Cole. How are you?" "Not bad. How's your Mitchell? Haven't seen him at work for a while." "Doesn't he work?" "Of course he is. It's just our departments don't overlap much. But I hear they have a big project going on right now." "Yeah, he told me about it. He's taken over as team leader." Mr. Cole raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Team leader? Mitchell? That's strange. I've never heard of a personnel change like that. Usually managerial appointments are announced officially. Could this be a temporary appointment?" "It could be." He shrugged. "Although temporary supervisors also get pay raises. Does your son get a raise?" "I don't know. He doesn't really like to discuss work matters." "Oh, I see. Well, tell him I said hi if you see him." "I will." We said our goodbyes and I continued my walk, but now I had more questions on my mind. Mr. Cole didn't know about Mitchell's appointment as project manager. That's odd. Usually in small companies, news spread quickly among the employees. When I got home, I brewed some coffee and sat down at the kitchen table. I needed to organize what I knew. Mitchell had married 6 months ago to a girl who was used to the expensive life. They bought a $375,000 house. They have a new car, expensive furniture, food from restaurants. Jessica does not work, and yet Mitchell keeps asking me to borrow money. Something wasn't adding up here. The next day, I decided to drive by my son's house. Not stop by, just take a look. Maybe I'd see something that would help me understand the situation. It was Thursday, a weekday. Mitchell was supposed to be at the office and Jessica at home. I parked across the street and watched. At 11:30, Jessica came out of the house. She was wearing an expensive sports dress and heeled shoes. She got into her SUV and drove off, probably to go shopping or to a friend's house. I waited another half hour, but nothing else of interest happened. The house was quiet and the windows were closed with curtains. That evening, Mitchell called again. "Mom, can you lend me some more money?" "How much do you need?" "7,000. A month, 2 months tops. $7,000 on top of the $15,000 I already borrowed. That's $22,000. What's the money for, son?" "Unforeseen expenses, house repairs, car trouble." But yesterday Jessica said the car was company owned and the company was covering all the expenses. Short silence. Not all of the car is company cars. I mean, not all expenses are covered. It's hard to explain. "Try me." "Mom, just trust me, okay? I'll pay you back as soon as I get my bonus." "What bonus?" "For the project. It's due at the end of the year." "How much is the bonus?" "I don't know exactly. It depends on the results, but it's a pretty good amount." I sighed. Mitchell was obviously hiding something, but I didn't want to push him. "Okay, I'll wire it to your account tomorrow." "Thanks, Mom. You're a big help." "Take care of yourself, son." After the conversation, I sat in the chair for a long time, thinking about the situation. $22,000 is a lot of money, and judging by the young couple's lifestyle, this would not be the last request for help. The next day, I went to the bank to make the transfer. Sitting in line with the manager, I decided to check my accounts at the same time. I hadn't done this in a long time, trusting bank employees. The manager, a young woman named Carol, was very polite and attentive. "Mrs. Crawford, What are you interested in? I'd like to wire $7,000 to my son's account, and I'd like to check my own account balances. Sure. We'll get you all set up. She typed something up on the computer real quick. What account are we transferring to? I gave her Mitchell's account number. Carol typed again, then frowned. I'm sorry. What's the recipient's name? Mitchell Crawford, my son. I see. She typed for a few more seconds. It's done. The money will be in within the hour. Can you show me my leftovers? Sure. She printed out a statement and handed it to me. I looked at the numbers and was surprised. There was a lot less money in the main account than I expected. Carol, why is that amount? I remembered it was supposed to be more. Maybe there were some write-offs. Would you like to see the transactions from the last few months? Yes, please. She printed out some more sheets. I looked through them and found some strange transactions. Transfers for large amounts that I didn't remember. These are the transfers. I pointed to a few lines. I didn't make them. Carol looked closely. These transactions were done through online banking. You have access to online banking? Yes, but I don't use it much. Who else knows your passwords? I've been thinking. Robert died 2 years ago. No one else had access to my banking information. Except, my son helped me set up online banking after my husband died. Oh, I see. So he knows your passwords. Yes, but suddenly something clicked in my head. Transfers, large amounts. The regularity of the transactions. I looked at the statement again and saw the recipient of the transfers, Mitchell's account. Carol, how many transfers have been made to this account in the last 6 months? She did a quick calculation. $38,400 plus today's transfer, $45,400. I felt dizzy. $45,000. Mitchell was transferring my money into his account without my knowledge, and then asking to borrow more, playing the needy son. Mrs. Crawford, you look pale. Are you not feeling well? No, I'm fine. It's just, unexpected. Would you like some water? No need. Can you tell me if I can cancel today's transfer? Unfortunately, no. The transaction's already been processed, but you can block access to online banking and change your passwords. Yes, please do that. While Carol processed the lockdown, I tried to make sense of it all. My son was stealing money from me, secretly, methodically, regularly, and then asking for a loan, playing the role of the caring son in distress. It's done, Carol said. Access to online banking has been blocked. New passwords will be mailed within 3 days. Thank you. Oh, and one more thing. I recommend that you contact a lawyer if these transfers were indeed made without your knowledge. I nodded and thanked her. On shaky legs, I reached my car and sat in the parking lot for a long time, trying to gather my thoughts. $45,000, almost half of my savings. The money Robert had been saving all his life. Money that was supposed to provide for my old age, and Mitchell was spending it on an expensive house, car, and his wife's whims. A week after my visit to the bank, Mitchell invited me to dinner again. This time he sounded more at ease, as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Perhaps the receipt of another sum of money had calmed him down. Mom, come over on Saturday. Jessie wants to show you the new changes to the house. What kind of changes? She redid the guest bedroom. She says it looks really nice. More spending. Remodeled the guest bedroom in a house I bought 3 months ago. But I didn't pretend to know anything. I'd love to see it. Oh, great. 7 p.m., as usual. I've been thinking a lot about what I've learned these days. My first impulse was to go to my son immediately and demand an explanation. But then I decided to be more cautious. I needed to understand the extent of the deception and whether Jessica knew the true source of their wealth. I arrived at 7 o'clock on Saturday. Mitchell met me on the doorstep with a smile that seemed more natural than the last time. Hi, Mom. Come on in quickly. Jesse can't wait to show me his work. Hi, son. You look better. Yeah, things are looking up at work. The project's going well. He led me upstairs where Jessica was proudly showing off the remodeled room. The walls had been repainted a soft blue, and there were new curtains, a bedspread, and decorative pillows. A small dressing table with a mirror stood in the corner. Do you like it? Jessica asked, expecting praise. It's beautiful, I said honestly. You picked the colors well. Thank you. It took me a long time to choose a shade. I wanted something soothing but not boring. How long did it take you to redecorate? 2 weeks. First, we painted, then we waited for it to dry. Then we bought furniture and accessories. Was it expensive? Not very much. Jessica waved her hand. 4,000. Mitty said investing in a house was always a good thing. $4,000 to redecorate one room from the money stolen from me. I nodded with understanding. Indeed, the house needed to be remodeled. We went downstairs, where the table was already set. Jessica didn't pretend to cook this time. The packages from the prepared food were on the kitchen countertop. I decided not to bother cooking, she explained. I ordered from that Italian restaurant. Their lasagna is divine. Good selection. Is it expensive to order in? Delivery is free for orders over $100. We're just about at that amount. $100 for dinner for 3 people. I've never spent that much on food before. At the table, the conversation at first was about small things. Jessica talked about the plans for landscaping the property, Mitchell occasionally interjecting comments. I watched them closely, trying to figure out how much Jessica knew about the true sources of their income. How's your project going, son? I asked. Is it going well? Yes, it's going according to plan. The bosses are happy with the results. When do you expect the bonus? In December, probably. They haven't announced an exact date yet. Jessica put down her fork and turned to her husband. By the way, darling, don't forget to tell them we need an advance. We want to go on vacation for the New Year's holidays. An advance? I asked again. Yes, against a future bonus, Jessica explained. Mitty had told me it was common practice at the big companies. Mitchell looked uncomfortable. It's too early to think about it, Jess. Why too soon? Good resorts have to be booked in advance. And in December, all the best places will be booked up. Where are you planning on going? I asked. Hawaii, Jessica glowed. Can you imagine, Deborah? Palm trees, ocean, white sand. I've dreamed of going to Hawaii my whole life. That sounds wonderful. How much does a trip like that cost? About $10,000 if you get a nice hotel. But you don't go on a honeymoon every day. Honeymoon? They've been married for 6 months. But I didn't say anything. Did you take a vacation after you got married? No, I didn't, Mitchell replied. It was a lot of work. That's why now I want to compensate, Jessica added. A real wedding trip, another $10,000 in expenses, on top of the $45,000 already spent. And that's just what I know. How are you doing on paying me back? I asked innocently. Mitchell choked on his lasagna. What debt? Jessica wondered. Mitchell had borrowed money from me for various purposes, a total of $22,000. Jessica looked at her husband in surprise. You didn't say you borrowed from Mom? It's, it's temporary. I'll pay you back as soon as I get my bonus. But why would you borrow if you had savings? Jessica looked genuinely surprised. The savings went towards the house. For a down payment? Yes, I was listening intently to that dialogue. Jessica really didn't know about the stolen money. Her mother's debt was news to her. Honey, but you said you had it all figured out ahead of time, that we had enough money for all our plans. We do. It's just that my bonus is late. How much is the bonus? Mitchell hesitated. I don't know the exact amount. It depends on a lot of factors. But roughly? 30,000 maybe. I almost laughed. A $30,000 bonus for a middle manager at an insurance company? That's the kind of money that top executives at major corporations get. That's a nice bonus, I said. Yes, the project is really important for the company. Jessica glowed. So we'll have Deborah paid off by New Year's Eve, and we'll have another vacation. Wonderful. She got up to get dessert, and I seized the moment. Mitchell, I said quietly, are you sure about your calculations? What are you talking about, Mom? The bonus, 30,000 is a lot of money. It's going to be fine. Don't worry. He avoided my gaze, and I realized he was lying even worse than when he was a kid. Jessica returned with tiramisu and champagne. Let's drink to the future, to Mitty's success and our happiness. She poured the champagne into glasses. Expensive champagne. I recognized the label. I'd seen it at the liquor store. $150 a bottle. What are we drinking to? Jessica asked, raising her glass. To family, I suggested. To family. We clinked glasses. Mitchell drank his glass almost in one gulp. You know, Deborah, Jessica said, getting comfortable in her chair, I sometimes envy your generation. In what way? Well, you had a simpler life. There wasn't the frantic pace of life, the constant spending. I guess it was easier to save money. Maybe, but it had its challenges too. Yeah, but bank accounts were easier to control. Not like now. Internet banking, automatic payments, lots of transactions every day. She took a sip of champagne and continued, I, for one, don't keep track of our finances at all. Mitty's the one who does all the banking. I don't have to. He does all the math. Aren't you afraid of losing control of the money? Why would I need control? Jessica laughed. We're transparent. Mitty shows me the account balances every month, tells me what I'm earning and spending. I trust him completely. It's the right thing to do in a family. Exactly. And some wives are always checking up on their husbands, demanding reports on every penny they spend. It's a nightmare. Mitchell tensed and looked at his wife warningly. Jess, can we not talk about this? Why not? Deborah understands, doesn't she? Jessica sipped her champagne again. You know, I read a magazine article about how older people control their finances. It said that a lot of people don't use online banking at all. They're afraid of it. And rightly so, I agreed. Security is more important than convenience. Come on, it's so inconvenient. Going to the bank every time, getting paper statements. Jessica shook her head. It's a good thing old ladies don't even check their bank statements. They live their lives without controlling anyone. The room seemed to freeze. Mitchell turned pale and stared at his wife. I felt a chill go through me. What did you say? I asked quietly. Huh? Jessica blinked, not realizing she'd said the wrong thing. About what? About old ladies and discharges. Well, I was just reading an article, and it said that the elderly often don't keep track of their bank transactions. Mitchell swallowed convulsively. His hands were shaking. That's an interesting article, I said, trying to keep my tone calm. Where did you read it? I don't remember exactly. Some magazine. Jessica was beginning to realize she'd said the wrong thing. Why, was it important? No, just curious. But the atmosphere in the room had changed. Mitchell looked like he wanted to fall through the ground. Jessica looked from her husband to me in confusion. Maybe some more champagne? She suggested tentatively. No thanks, I should get home. But it's still early. Tomorrow's Sunday, I want to get some sleep. I got up and grabbed my purse. Mitchell walked me to the door in silence. I turned to him on the threshold. Take care of yourself, son. You too, Mom. His voice was hoarse. I got into the car and drove slowly away from the house. In the rearview mirror, I saw Mitchell standing on the porch, staring after me. Good thing old ladies don't even check their bank statements. That phrase sounded like a drum beat in my head. Jessica knew, maybe not all the details, but she knew the money was coming from somewhere other than her husband's paycheck, and thought it was okay because old ladies don't check. I was no longer just a cheating mom. I was now a target for two people who thought I was a stupid old lady who couldn't control her own money. When I got home, I sat in the kitchen for a long time, thinking about what I had heard. Jessica had accidentally revealed something that should have remained a secret. Now I knew for sure they both knew what was going on, and they both thought I was stupid enough not to notice the theft. Tomorrow I'm going to take action, but first I have to figure out the full extent of the damage. I woke up Sunday morning with a clear head and a clear plan of action. Jessica's phrase had kept me up all night, but now I knew what to do next. I needed to figure out the full picture of the financial damage and figure out how long this deception had been going on. After breakfast, I pulled out all the bank records I kept in a folder in Robert's desk. My late husband had been a pedantic man and had accustomed me to saving all important papers. Statements from the past 2 years lay in a neat stack, organized by month. I brewed a strong cup of coffee, put on my reading glasses, and sat down at the kitchen table. I decided to check all the transactions from January of this year, when Mitchell first met Jessica. The first few months looked normal. Normal spending, utility bills, store purchases, occasional cash withdrawals, no suspicious transfers. But in March, a month after they met, the first strange transaction appeared. A $3,000 transfer marked family needs. I remembered it. Mitchell had asked for help with car repairs, but it looked like he'd not only asked me for the money, he'd also transferred the same amount to himself. And then there's more. In April, two transfers for $2,000 each. In May, one for $5,000. In June, when they got married, $10,000 at once, labeled wedding expenses. Even though I'd already paid for the banquet, I wrote down the numbers on a piece of paper, and the amount grew frighteningly fast. By the end of August, I had $38,400. That's what the manager at the bank said. Plus the last transfer of $7,000, $45,400 in 8 months. But these were only transfers through the internet bank. What if there were other ways? I took a closer look at all the transactions and found a few more suspicious cash withdrawals in large sums. $5,000 in July, $3,000 in August. I definitely hadn't withdrawn that money. That worked out to over $50,000, almost half of all the savings Robert and I had saved all our lives. I put the statements aside and walked around the house. Anger boiled inside, but I forced myself to think coldly and rationally. Emotions wouldn't help right now. I needed to figure out exactly how Mitchell had gotten access to my accounts. I thought back to that day 2 years ago when he'd helped me set up online banking after Robert's death. At the time, it seemed like the concern of a loving son. Now I realized he had memorized all the passwords and access codes. But why hadn't I noticed anything before? The answer was simple. I really rarely checked my accounts. The pension came automatically. The main payments were deducted automatically. Once a month, I could look at the balance through an ATM, but I studied detailed statements only once a quarter. A classic case of what Jessica said: old ladies don't check statements. Around noon, the phone rang. Mitchell. Hey, Mom. How you doing? I'm fine, son. How are you? Pretty good, too. Listen, I wanted to apologize about last night. Jessie sometimes says things without thinking. What do you mean? You know, old ladies in banks. I mean, it's just silly. She's been reading a bunch of articles on the internet, so he realizes his wife said something that she didn't mean. He's trying to minimize the damage. I wasn't even paying attention. I lied. I don't know what they say in magazines. Exactly. He sounded relieved. By the way, do you think we should really go to Hawaii? Jesse really wants to go, but I think maybe we should hold off for now. Why? It's expensive. It's better to pay off the debts first. Interesting. Yesterday he was making big plans, and today he's suddenly talking about debt. His wife's phrase must have frightened him. A wise decision, I agreed. It's really better to pay your debts on time. Yeah, speaking of my debt to you, why don't we make a payment schedule? Make it official. If you want, how much do you expect to pay back per month? 2,000 or 1,500. 22,000 divided by 2,000 a month is 11 months. At 1.5, that's almost a year and a half. All right, when do you start? November, I guess. I can't start in October yet. Why not? We have a lot of expenses this month. We're preparing for winter. We're insulating the house. More expenses. And this is despite the fact that the house is new, warm, and it does not need to be insulated. I see. November then. Thanks for understanding, Mom. I sat with the transcripts for another hour after that. Mitchell's clearly freaked out by last night's incident, and he's trying to put himself in a better light, talking about repaying his debt when in fact he stole twice as much as he admits. In the afternoon, I decided to visit my friend Gloria. We'd been friends since high school, and she was the only person I could trust. Besides, Gloria worked as an accountant for a large company and was well versed in financial matters. Gloria lived in a small house about 10 minutes away from me. She greeted me with a smile, but immediately noticed my condition. Deb, what's wrong? You look upset. Can we talk? A serious talk. Sure. Come on in. I'll put the tea on. We sat on her veranda with cups of hot tea, and I told her everything. The transfers, the bank statements, last night's dinner, and Jessica's phrase. Gloria listened in silence, only occasionally shaking her head. $50,000, she repeated when I finished. Deb, that's a lot of money. I know. And you're sure Mitchell made all the transfers without your knowledge? Absolutely. I remember every translation I did myself. Gloria stirred her tea thoughtfully with a spoon. Technically, it's stealing, you know. I do. So, what are you planning on doing? I don't know yet. I'm thinking. You could sue. I have proof, and I have a witness at the bank. He's my son, Gloria, the son who stole half your life savings. We didn't talk. Gloria was right, but suing my own child seemed unthinkable. What if we tried a family solution? My friend suggested it. Talk to him openly, demand the full amount back immediately. He'll say there's no money, then let him sell the house. The mortgage was issued on this money, so the proceeds will go to pay off the debt to you. And if he refuses, then it's court. But first, give him a chance to make things right on his own. Gloria's advice seemed reasonable. Mitchell had to be given a chance to do the right thing, and if he didn't take that opportunity, then other measures. And another thing, Deb, Gloria added, be sure to change all the passwords at the bank and report the data compromise. I already did. Good for you. Now, the important thing was not to let myself be fooled again. In the evening, when I got home, I sat down at the table and wrote a long letter. I laid out all the facts, the amounts transferred, the dates of the transactions, my suspicions. I wrote that I knew about Jessica's phrase and that I understood the real situation. At the end of the letter, I gave an ultimatum. Either the entire amount would be returned within a month, or I would contact a lawyer and the police. No compromises, no installments for years to come. The letter was harsh but fair. I didn't demand the impossible. I just wanted my money back. But I didn't send the letter yet. First, I wanted to think about it some more and maybe find out more about Mitchell and Jessica's real situation. The next day, I decided to do a little research. If they were living on my money, it would be interesting to find out exactly what they were spending that kind of money on. Maybe there are some other secrets I don't know about. In the morning, I drove to the neighborhood where they lived and parked in a convenient spot for surveillance. I didn't intend to spy all the time. I just wanted to understand their lifestyle. At 11:30, Jessica came out of the house. She was dressed impeccably. An expensive coat, leather bag, high-heeled shoes. She got into her SUV and drove toward the mall. I followed her from a distance. Jessica parked in front of an expensive department store and disappeared inside. 2 hours later, she came out with a few bags from the boutiques, then stopped at a beauty salon, where she spent another hour and a half. After the salon, she went to a restaurant where she met two friends. They ordered expensive wine and chatted for a long time, laughing and taking selfies. I watched from the parking lot and figured out the costs. Boutique shopping, at least $1,000. Beauty salon, 200 or 300. Dinner at a restaurant, another 200 for three. That's a total of $1,500 in one morning. With spending like this happening on a regular basis, it's no wonder Mitchell needs additional sources of income. Around 4 o'clock, Jessica came home. I waited another half hour and drove home too, pondering what I had seen. The picture was becoming clearer and clearer. Jessica was used to a life of luxury and wasn't about to give it up. Mitchell is willing to steal from his own mother just to provide his wife with the standard of living she wants. They both think it's okay because the old lady doesn't check the statements. At home, I reread the letter I had written yesterday and decided to finalize it. I had to add one more clause: immediate cessation of all large expenses until the debt was paid in full. While I was ruling the text, the phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. Hello? Mrs. Crawford? This is Angela from Elegance Beauty Salon. Your daughter-in-law Jessica asked me to tell you she can't make it to her manicure tomorrow. I'm sorry, but you have the wrong number. I didn't order any treatment for my sister-in-law. But the record indicates that you're being billed. Jessica Crawford, the invoice is for Deborah Crawford. I got a chill in my gut. What's the bill? For today's treatments: haircut, color, manicure, pedicure, $450. I didn't order anything and I'm not gonna pay for anything. But Jessica said you're her mother-in-law and you always pay for her visits. I always do. So this isn't the first time. How many times has she come to see you on my dime? Well, regularly, every 2 weeks or so. Since spring, $450 every 2 weeks. 24 times a year. Over $10,000 for the beauty parlor alone. Look, I said as calmly as I could, I didn't authorize anyone to order treatments on my behalf, and I'm not going to pay. But what about get Jessica to pay for it, and don't take any more orders in my name from her? I hung up, and a minute later it rang again. Jessica. Deborah, what's wrong? I got a call from the salon saying you're refusing to pay. That's right. I didn't order any treatments for you. But you've always paid. Mitty said it was okay with you. Mitchell wasn't telling the truth. I never agreed to pay for you to go to the salon. A short silence. But how am I supposed to pay now? I don't have any money on me. That's your problem, dear. Could you, for the last time? No. I hung up and immediately dialed the bank. I had to check to see if there were any other regular payments in my name that I didn't know about. Turns out they were. Automatic charges on Mitchell and Jessica's credit cards, their car insurance, even Jessica's gym membership. Shut it all down, I told the bank representative immediately, but you'll need a written request to disconnect it. I'll come by tomorrow morning and write a statement. In the meantime, block all automatic payments. As I hung up the phone, I felt a mixture of rage and relief, furious at the extent of the deception, relieved that I'd finally taken action. Now Mitchell and Jessica would find out what it was like to live on their own money. I woke up the next morning with a clear plan. If I was going to bring serious charges against Mitchell, I needed to know everything about him and Jessica. So far, I've only seen the tip of the iceberg, their spending and lifestyle, but there must be other secrets. After breakfast, I called my neighbor, Mrs. Palmer. She was a veritable encyclopedia of neighborhood news and gossip. If something was going on somewhere, Mrs. Palmer was the first to know. Alice, good afternoon. This is Deborah Crawford. Oh, Deborah, how are you? It's been a long time. It's all right. Listen, I was wondering if you could do some research. I have a friend who's worried about her daughter-in-law. She's young, inexperienced, could get in trouble. Sure, I'll help. Who are we talking about? Jessica Crawford. She lives on Oak Street, number 277. Oh, that new house. The pretty one? The brown one? That's the one. I know. What exactly are you interested in? Just general information. How she lives, who she hangs out with, if she has any problems. I see. Give me a couple days to find out. Mrs. Palmer loved this kind of assignment. It was like a detective game to her. After talking to my roommate, I decided to do my own research. I started with the easiest thing in the world, an internet search. Jessica was an active user of social networks and posted a lot of photos. Her page was a treasure trove of information. Photos of expensive outfits, restaurants, jewelry, everyday new purchases, new entertainment. The captions to the photos spoke of a carefree life. Shopping is the best therapy. Life is beautiful when you have a loving husband. Only the best is worthy of a real woman. But I was especially interested in the photos with some man. He was tall, athletic, with a predatory smile. In the pictures, they were hugging, laughing, clearly spending time together. The last such photo was taken just a week ago. In the comments, the man wrote, "Miss our meetings," and "When will I see you again?" Jessica responded with hearts and cryptic emoticons. His profile was open. Rick Thompson, 32, sales manager at a car dealership. From the photos, he liked expensive cars, clubs, and beautiful women. His marital status said single. I scrolled further down his page and found many photos of him and Jessica together over the past year. They met in restaurants, traveled out of town, were at some parties, and some of the pictures were dated after Jessica's wedding to Mitchell. That's interesting. So, my sister-in-law has secrets from her husband. The next step was to visit the car dealership where Rick worked. I made up a cover story about buying a car for my granddaughter and went there in the afternoon. The car dealership was large and expensive. Shiny cars stood in a spacious hall, and managers in suits walked around the customers with professional smiles. I recognized Rick immediately. He was even more handsome than he looked in the photos. Charming smile, confident movements, expensive suit. A real alpha male, as Jessica would say. "Good afternoon," I said to him. "I need advice on choosing a car." "Sure, Rick Thompson at your service." He held out his hand. "Who are we picking out a car for?" "My granddaughter. She's 18, needs something safe and reliable." "That's a good choice. We have several models perfect for young drivers." He took me around the showroom, showing me the cars and talking about their advantages. He spoke professionally, but I could see that his mind was on something else. Several times he was distracted by his cell phone. "Excuse me," he said after another call. "I have an important client. Do you mind if I answer it?" "Sure, go ahead." He stepped aside but spoke loud enough for me to hear. "Hey, gorgeous. Yeah, I can't make it tonight. I got work till 8 o'clock. Tomorrow? Let's do it at the same place. Sure, I'll pay." The conversation lasted a few minutes. Rick spoke softly, intimately, clearly to a woman he cared about. When he returned, I decided to probe. "Pardon my indiscretion, but you sound so happy. You must have been talking to your fiancé." He laughed. "No, I'm not. I'm a bachelor. I have a girlfriend." I see. Is she married? Unfortunately, yes. Rick shrugged. But her husband's a total bore. Works in insurance somewhere, doesn't make any money, and a beautiful woman deserves better, don't you think? Absolutely. That's what I think. That's why I try to spoil her. Restaurants, gifts, trips. A woman should feel like a queen. Doesn't your husband get jealous? He doesn't know. Rick winked. She's a smart girl. She's got it all figured out. Tells him she's out with her friends or shopping. That's clever. She doesn't ask me for money. She says her husband gives her everything she needs. That's rare among women, I'll tell you. That's interesting information. So not only is Jessica cheating on her husband, but she's lying to both sides. She tells Rick she's a provider. She tells Mitchell she's a faithful wife. We continued talking about cars, but I already got what I came for. Rick told me more than he should have, apparently flattered by the attention of an understanding older lady. How long has your friend been married? I asked, looking at the brochures. 6 months only. The wedding was in spring, very beautiful. True, I wasn't invited, he grinned. But she told me all about it. The dress for 5,000, the banquet, the flowers. She said her mother-in-law paid for it. Generous mother-in-law. Yeah, she's got some rich relatives. A friend of mine told me she and her husband bought a house, 375,000. Can you believe that? That's a lot of money. Uh-huh. The down payment was 70,000, but they have someone to help them. So the family's supportive. $70,000. That's more than he stole from me. So there must have been other sources. Where did you and your friend meet? I kept asking. At a club a year ago. She wasn't married then. We were dating openly. And then she said she was getting married, and I thought it was over. But a month after the wedding, she called me. What did she say? That she missed me and wanted to see me. Husband's a good man, she says, but he's boring. No surprises, no passion, and she wants a lot of excitement. I see. I resisted at first, of course. I mean, it's not like I'm someone else's wife. But she insisted, said it didn't change anything in her family life, just a little fun. Rick talked about the affair as easily as if it were a trip to the movies. To him, it was a game, fun, no strings attached. And how often do you two see each other? Once a week or so, sometimes more if it works out. She's a very busy girl, house, husband, girlfriends, but she always makes time for me. I thanked Rick for the consultation, took my business card, and promised to think about the purchase. Driving home with a head full of new information, Jessica was cheating on her husband with an ex-boyfriend. They met regularly, and he paid for their entertainment. She lied to both parties about the source of the money. But that wasn't all. Mrs. Palmer called this evening. Deborah, I've been looking into your sister-in-law. It's very interesting. Go on. First of all, the girl has money problems, serious money problems. A friend of mine works at a bank, and she saw her go in to apply for a credit card. She asked for a high limit, but they turned her down because she had a bad credit history. What bad history? Delinquency on previous loans. She borrowed money for shopping and didn't pay it back on time. Now she owes at least $15,000 to the banks, $15,000 in debt, which Mitchell doesn't know about. Also, Mrs. Palmer continued, she lies to her husband about her job. She says she doesn't work, but she moonlights 3 days a week at the same beauty parlor. But it's a black job with no paperwork. Why is she lying? To make her husband think she's a housewife. She's totally dependent on him. But she makes good money herself, $300 a week, cash. So Jessica has income that her husband doesn't know about, plus debts that her husband doesn't know about. One last thing, the neighbor added. She's seeing some man. He's handsome, comes in an expensive car. We saw them together in a restaurant on the outskirts of town. How often do they see each other? Once a week for sure, maybe more often. The information confirmed what I found out at the car dealership. Jessica was playing a double game on multiple fronts. The next day, I decided to find out more about Mitchell's financial situation. To do so, I went back to Mr. Cole, a neighbor who worked for the same insurance company. I met him on his way home from work that evening. Good evening, Mr. Cole. Can I talk to you for a minute? Of course, Mrs. Crawford. Is something the matter? I was wondering about Mitchell. He says he's got a pay raise coming up. Is that true? Mr. Cole looked at me in surprise. A raise? Mitchell's? I don't think so. We've frozen salaries at our company until next year. It's a recession. What about the project he's in charge of? What project? Mitchell works as a field agent, same as before. He's not in charge of anything. That's odd. He told me he was a team leader. No, that's definitely not true. I'd know about those assignments. Why do you ask? No reason. I'm just curious. It's been a long time since he's talked about his work in detail. I see. Well, I can tell you for sure, he hasn't been promoted. The salary is the same as it was a year ago. Another lie. Mitchell wasn't just lying about money transfers, he was lying about his job title and income. At home, I drew up a detailed scheme of deception. On the one hand, Mitchell was stealing money from me and lying to his wife about his income. On the other hand, Jessica was hiding her debts, her part-time job, and her cheating from her husband. The perfect pair of liars. Each was deceiving the other, and both were deceiving me. But now I had information I could use. Mitchell didn't know about his wife's debt and cheating. Jessica didn't know that their prosperity was built on stealing from her mother-in-law. The only thing left to decide was how exactly to use that information. One could simply give Mitchell an ultimatum and demand a refund. But given the extent of the lies on both sides, I wanted a more elegant solution. They played me for a silly old lady. Now it was my turn to show who was smarter in this game. That evening, I went over all the materials I'd collected: bank statements, photos from social networks, information from neighbors and acquaintances. The picture was complete and ugly. Mitchell had stolen over $50,000 from me in 8 months. Jessica was spending that money on luxuries while cheating on her husband and hiding her own debts. Both lied to each other and to me, thinking they were very clever. Tomorrow I'm going to take action. I have a plan. Wednesday morning, I woke up with a clear plan of action. During the night, everything was finalized in my head, exactly how to strike back. They thought I was a helpless old lady who didn't notice the thefts. Tonight, I would show them how wrong they were. First thing I did was go to the bank to get all the necessary paperwork. I met with Carol, the manager who'd helped me before. Mrs. Crawford, how are you? Any luck with the transfers? Yes, thank you. Today, I'd like to completely block all third parties from accessing my accounts, and I'd like a statement of funds for the last year. Sure. We'll get you all set up right away. Carol quickly typed up the paperwork, and in half an hour, I had a statement with a complete history of my accounts. The numbers were even scarier than I thought. Over the course of the year, Mitchell had transferred $57,000 to himself, plus automatic payments for $12,000. That's $69,000. And I'll need copies of all the paperwork for the automatic debits, I asked. For what purpose? I might have to consult a lawyer. Carol nodded understandingly and printed out all the necessary papers. The packet contained copies of automatic debit applications for Mitchell and Jessica's credit cards, their insurance policies, gym memberships, and beauty salons. The signatures were mine, but I definitely didn't sign them. Forging a signature is a serious offense, Carol said as she studied the documents. I know, that's why I'm collecting evidence. Next stop was the library. I needed access to the internet and a printer to prepare the materials for shipping. I never used a computer at home as a matter of principle. Robert always said it was a hassle. At the library, I sat down at the computer and opened Jessica's social networking page. I saved all the photos of her with her lover Rick over the last 6 months, especially the compromising ones of them hugging, kissing, sitting in candlelit restaurants. Then I found the insurance company page where Mitchell worked and printed out the salary information. According to public records, managers at his level made $30,000 to $40,000 a year. No $30,000 bonuses were included there. Then she looked at the website of the bank where Jessica was trying to get a credit card. In the section for partners, she found information on how to check her credit history. It turned out you could get a report on anyone's debts for a small fee. I paid $20 and got a detailed report on Jessica Crawford. The picture was dismal. 4 delinquent loans, totaling $18,000 in debt. The most recent delinquency was dated last week. I printed out all the materials in multiple copies. At home, I laid them out on the table and began to think how best to organize the shipment. I decided to divide and conquer. I would send each spouse information about the other's secrets. Let them work it out between themselves. I prepared a package for Mitchell with photos of Jessica and Rick, a printout of their social media correspondence, and her credit report. She included a note that said, "Consider stealing money from your mother to support a wife like this." For Jessica, a statement of Mitchell's actual salary, copies of bank statements with transfers, and documentation of automatic debits. The note was shorter. "Your prosperity is built on theft. It will end soon." The envelopes were signed the same way, from a man who knows the truth. No return address. In the evening, I drove to the other side of town and sent the letters from the post office. Courier delivery the next day. Wanted them to get the information at the same time. At home, I called the lawyer David Morris, with whom Robert and I had drafted our wills. Made an appointment for Friday. "What do you want to talk about, Mrs. Crawford?" "Stealing money and forging signatures. It's a big case." "I see. Come on down. We'll get to the bottom of it." Thursday, I waited all day for calls. The letters were supposed to be delivered by lunchtime, and it didn't take long to get a response. Jessica was the first to call. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and her voice was shaking. "Deborah, I need to talk to you. It's urgent." "About what, darling?" "Not over the phone. Can I come over?" "Come." She showed up half an hour later. She looked confused and scared. She was holding an envelope with my papers. "Did you send this?" she asked before she even crossed the threshold. "Come in, Jessica. Let's talk quietly." We went into the living room. Jessica sat on the edge of the couch, crumpling the envelope in her hands. "Where did you get these papers?" "The bank. They're my accounts, my money. But Mitty said that you authorized—" "Mitchell says a lot of things. Not all of it's true." Jessica was silent, digesting the information. "How much do you know?" "Everything. About the thefts, about forging signatures, about how you spend the money you stole." "I didn't know it was stealing," she exclaimed. "Honest to God, Mitty said you give the money voluntarily." "And the automatic charges to your credit cards. Did I authorize those voluntarily too?" "He said you had written consent," Jessica cried. "Not pretty, like in the movies, but ugly, with smeared mascara and a reddened nose." "What's going to happen now?" she sobbed. "Will you go to the police?" "It depends on many factors." "Which ones?" "On how quickly you return the money you stole, on whether you stop lying, and on what Mitchell will say when he finds out about your secrets." Jessica flinched. "What secrets?" $18,000 in debt, the part-time job at the beauty parlor, about Rick Thompson. She turned even paler. "Are you going to tell him?" "I already did. Your husband is getting a very interesting package today." Jessica sobbed louder. "He'll kill me." "I don't think so. He'll probably divorce me." "But I love him." "That's a strange way to show love." Stealing your mother-in-law's money for your lover. Jessica couldn't find anything to say. She cried and wiped her nose with a paper napkin. "What do you want?" she finally asked. "The return of all the money she stole, $69,000. We don't have that kind of money. Then sell the house, the car, the jewelry. But where will we live? That's your problem. You should have thought of that earlier." Jessica sat for another 10 minutes, sobbing and trying to find an argument. But there were no arguments. The facts spoke for themselves. "I'll talk to Mitty," she said, standing up. "Maybe we can work something out." "Good luck. I look forward to your offer within the week." After she left, I made tea and sat down to wait for a call from Mitchell. It didn't take long. "Mom?" His voice sounded hoarse. "What's going on? What exactly are you interested in, son?" Jessie came home crying. "She says you've got it all figured out, and someone sent me some stuff about her." "Stuff about her? What kind of stuff?" "Photos, documents." He didn't say anything. "Is it true?" "Is what true?" "That she's seeing someone else, and she's lying to me about the money." "What do you think?" Long pause. "I guess it's true. It makes a lot of sense now." "So, what are you gonna do?" "I don't know. Mom, can I come over? I want to talk to you." "Sure." He arrived that evening, looking awful. Unshaven, wrinkled shirt, red eyes. He went into the living room and fell into a chair. "You know about the money?" he asked without lifting his head. "I know. How long?" "A week." "So, what now?" "You tell me. How much you stole? Why, when you're gonna pay it back?" Mitchell sighed heavily. 69,000 a year. Started after I met Jessica. She was used to the high life, and I didn't have enough money. "So, you decided to steal from your mother?" "Not steal, borrowing. I thought I'd pay her back later." "When?" "I don't know. I kept putting it off." "What about the automatic charges on her credit cards? Are those loans too?" "She didn't know it was yours. She thought I had a big paycheck." "What's your actual salary?" 32,000 a year, less than 3,000 a month. You can't buy a $35,000 house with that kind of money. And you thought I wouldn't notice it was missing? You thought you didn't check your accounts." Jessica said. "Said what?" "That older people don't usually keep track of their banking." So Jessica had the idea. She put him up to the theft. "Did he know about her debts?" "No, she said she had no credit." $18,000 in debt, Mitchell. Outstanding. 18,000? He put his hands over his face. "Oh my God. You didn't know about Rick either?" "I suspected something, but she swore it was just a friend." "A friend she meets at restaurants while you're at work." Mitchell didn't say anything. I could see his shoulders shaking. "What now?" he finally asked. "Now you return all the money you stole, in full and immediately." "I don't have that kind of money." "Sell the house. There's a mortgage on it." "Your problem. You have to take responsibility for what you do." We sat in silence for about 5 minutes. Then Mitchell looked up. "If I pay you back, you won't sue me?" "We'll see. A lot depends on how quickly and completely you pay it back." Okay, yeah. I'll see what I can do." He stood up and walked toward the door. He turned around at the door. "Mom, I'm sorry." "Words don't change anything, Mitchell. Only actions." After he left, I sat down at the table and wrote a plan of action. Mitchell and Jessica now knew their secrets were out. They knew they were facing a lawsuit if they didn't return the money. All they had to do was wait for their decision. They had a week to think about it. After that, I would go to legal counsel officially. The game had just begun. The next few days passed in relative silence. Mitchell and Jessica didn't call, didn't visit, seemed to vanish into thin air. I knew there was a heated argument going on in their house right now, and I waited patiently for the results. On Friday, as planned, I met with lawyer David Morris. His office was located downtown, in the building where he had worked for 20 years. David was Robert's age. We had known him for a long time and trusted him. Deborah, have a seat. Tell me what happened. I laid out all the documents on his desk: bank statements, copies of false statements, Jessica's credit history, photos of their expensive purchases. David scrutinized each paper, occasionally whistling in surprise. $69,000, he summarized. That's a lot of money, and your evidence is ironclad. What can be done? A lot of things. Forging a signature is a felony. Grand larceny is also a felony. Your son could get real time. And if he returns the money voluntarily, then we can limit ourselves to a civil suit. But the return must be full and prompt. David drew up a formal demand for the money. The document looked impressive. Several pages of legal text listing all the violations and possible consequences. Let's send it by registered mail with return receipt, he suggested. We'll give them 10 days to respond. And if they don't respond, we'll sue, and the police too. I agreed. The letter was sent the same day. It didn't take long to get a reply. Sunday morning, Mitchell came to see me, alone, without Jessica. He looked worse than he had the week before. He hadn't shaved in 3 days. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes red and puffy. "Mom, can I come in?" "Come on in." He went into the living room and sank heavily into a chair. He was silent for 2 minutes, collecting his thoughts. "Jessie's gone," he said at last. "Gone where?" "To Rick's. She packed up this morning and left. Said she didn't want to live in this nightmare anymore." I wasn't surprised. Jessica was never a fighter. At the first serious trouble, she chose to run away. "What about the house?" "Put it on the market. Realtor says you can sell it for $300,000 pretty quick. After the mortgage is paid off, you'll have $70,000 left. That doesn't even cover half the debt." "I know. I'll sell the car, furniture, whatever I can. Maybe $90,000. And the rest? I don't know. I don't have anything else." Mitchell spoke softly, hopelessly. I could see he was completely broken. "Are you looking for a new job?" "I quit after all this. I can't work there anymore. Everyone knows I have money problems." "What are you planning to do?" "Leave here, make a fresh start somewhere else in another city. Maybe find a job that pays better." I listened to him and realized he was trying to escape responsibility, just like Jessica, only in his own way. "Mitchell, do you realize that $100,000 isn't a full compensation?" "I do, but that's all I have." "What about interest on the money? What about the moral damages? And the fact that I haven't been able to use my savings for a year?" "Mom, I'll do everything I can." "No," I interrupted him. "You'll do whatever you have to do." I took out of my purse the documents I'd prepared in advance. "This is a full acknowledgement of debt in the amount of $115,000. The amount includes the stolen money plus interest." $115,000? Mitchell turned pale. "But where did that figure come from?" $69,000 in principal plus interest at 10% per annum. That's less than you'd pay the bank. "I don't have $115,000. Then you'll work and pay it back in installments. But first you have to sign a receipt." Mitchell took the document with trembling hands. He read for a long time, rereading each line several times. "And if I don't sign? Then tomorrow morning the lawyer will file a lawsuit and a police report. Mom, it's your son. That's why I'm giving you one last chance to settle this amicably." He sat for another 5 minutes, then took a pen and signed. His hand was shaking so badly that the signature was uneven. "Now the repayment schedule," I said, pulling out another document. The schedule was strict: $1,000 a month for 10 years. Considering Mitchell was making $3,000 a month at most, that meant a very modest life. $1,000 a month, he repeated. But how am I going to live on the rest of the money? The way millions of people before you lived, modestly and honestly. And if I can't pay, then there's an automatic judicial foreclosure on all your income and property. Mitchell signed that document too. Now I had all the legal security I needed. When is the first payment due? He asked. In a month. By then I should be able to sell the house and pay part of it off. And then? Then you'll work and pay, honestly and carefully. He got up to leave. He turned around on the way out. What about Jessica? Does she have to pay too? I'll ask her separately. It was true. I had all the paperwork on her debts and spending. $15,000 in automatic charges to her cards was her personal responsibility. After Mitchell left, I called David Morris and told him about the signed documents. Great, he said. Now you have all the grounds for collection. If you have any problems with the payments, you can contact him right away. What about his wife? She's a separate story. You can sue for damages. I've got the contacts of a good investigator who can help you find her. A week later, Mitchell did sell the house. As promised, he had $72,000 left after paying off the bank. He brought me a check for that amount and the keys to the car. I'm selling the car too, he said. It'll be another $10,000. Good. And where will you live? I rented a room on the outskirts, cheap and mean. He looked a few years older. The consequences of stealing and lying were harder than he'd bargained for. Did you get a job? Yeah, a small firm. Less money than before, but it's something. How much? $2,000 a month. After the payout, you'll have $1,000 to live on. It's not much. I know, but it's all I have for now. I took the check and counted the amount I owed. With the proceeds, I had $33,000 left. At $1,000 a month, that's 2.5 years. If you find a job with a bigger paycheck, you can pay more and pay it off faster. I'll do my best. Mitchell left, and I was left with a sense of accomplishment. Justice had been served, though not fully. Jessica took a bit longer. She was hiding out with her lover, not answering calls or emails. I had to actually hire a private investigator, as David advised. The detective found her pretty quickly. It turned out that she works in a beauty salon in a neighboring state and lives with Rick in a rented apartment. The life of luxury was over. Now she had to earn her own money. The lawyers served her with a $15,000 lawsuit for the amount of money she'd spent on my cards for her personal needs. Jessica tried to resist, hired a lawyer, but the evidence was too compelling. 6 months later, the court ruled in my favor. Jessica was ordered to pay the debt with interest for 3 years. The bailiffs were forcibly garnishing her wages. Rick Thompson, having learned about the financial problems of his mistress, quickly lost interest in her. The affair ended as abruptly as it began. Jessica was left alone with debts and ruined reputation. It's been a year since those events. Mitchell had paid $1,000 every month. He got a better job, now making $2,500. He lived modestly, rented a small apartment, drove an old used car. We didn't see each other much. He called once a month when he brought in his next paycheck. We talked politely but coldly. Trust was broken forever. How's work going? I'd ask. It's okay. I'm getting used to it. Your health's good? Yeah, thanks. There was nothing more to talk about. He owed me and he knew it. I was a cheating mother and I remembered it. There was a gulf between us that no amount of money could fill. Jessica was also paying off her debt, albeit late. The bailiffs came to her work regularly, which created additional problems. She tried to find a better paying job, but she could not get recommendations from her ex-husband. They finalized their divorce quickly and without scandals. There was nothing to divide. The property was sold off to pay off debts. Jessica received only personal belongings and jewelry, which soon also had to be sold, and I went back to my old life, peaceful, quiet, without financial adventures and lying relatives. The money in my account recovered slowly but surely. Trust in people was not restored at all. Now I personally controlled every bank transaction. I never gave anyone passwords or access. I reviewed statements weekly. No one could call me the old lady who doesn't check her accounts. Sometimes, sitting in Robert's chair, I wondered if I'd done the right thing. Maybe I should have just talked to my son, given him a chance to make amends without legal repercussions. But then I remembered Jessica's line about old ladies and discharges. I remembered how easy it was for them to spend my money on their whims. I remembered the lies, the deceit, the betrayal of the people closest to me. No, I did the right thing. Justice requires not only understanding, but also punishment. Otherwise, people will think it's okay to steal from those who seem weaker. Mitchell and Jessica learned a lesson they'll remember for the rest of their lives. And I got confirmation that age is not a sentence to helplessness. Even at 73, you can stand up for yourself and punish your abusers. My revenge was patient, methodical, and fair. It was exactly what real revenge should be.